the rest of the story. When John Winston turned 21, his wealthy and adoring Aunt Elizabeth said that he could have anything that he wanted. Well, John's eyes lighted up. He and his best pal Jim had been planning a trip to Paris, France, but they didn't have enough money. So Aunt Elizabeth gladly presented John with more than enough cash and wished for the boys a happy holiday. Once in Paris, they contacted another friend, Jurgen Vollmer, a commercial artist from Hamburg, and the three young men had a terrific time, haunting the left bank cafes, strolling the storied boulevards, and still all the while, John and Jim caught themselves staring at Jurgen, more specifically at Jurgen's hair. And finally, one of them got up the courage to ask, "Why are you wearing your hair like that?" Well, Jurgen assured them that was the latest style. John and Jim looked around. If that were the latest hairstyle, then somebody forgot to tell Paris. "You ought to try it," urged their German friend. John and Jim said, "Maybe later." But I'll tell you something, Jurgen finally did persuade them. In fact, he actually talked his friends into letting him cut their hair, so now there were three of them loose in Paris, drawing glances from fellow passers-by. But around the old city, known for its liberal attitudes toward everything in general and fashion in particular, nobody seemed to object. And then after a couple of carefree weeks, the vacation was over. The young men returned home, and the reactions that greeted them back home, well, that is the rest of the story. John Winston's Aunt Elizabeth, the kindly old woman who'd financed the Paris holiday, just sat there, stared at her nephew's hair in silent bafflement. Jim's relatives were equally astonished. The real amazement was expressed by their friends. Most of them just laughed. And I mean, did they ever laugh? "You look like schoolboys who've been in a fight," one of them remarked. So John and Jim defended themselves precisely the way their friend Jurgen Vollmer had. They tried to make their mistake sound in. This, they said, was the very latest European hairstyle. It was all of the rage, they said, among smart young people everywhere they had visited. The explanation worked. The explanation worked. After a while, their friends began to accept the silly-looking haircuts, even to the point that some actually imitated them. Even though John and Jim, by the time they had returned home, had added a touch of carelessness to Jurgen Vollmer's creation. They had neglected to comb their hair neatly to the side in front. They had begun to just let it hang straight down, all around. You see, back then, this was the autumn of 1961. The teenage hair craze was still slicked back and greasy. But it took two young men named John Winston Lennon and James Paul McCartney. Took those two young men, Lennon and McCartney, to transform their hometown and eventually the world through a tonsorial epiphany that had occurred utterly by accident. Now, you've known it all along as the Beatles' haircut, but now you know the rest of the story.
Welcome to the rest of the story, where we take a closer look at the information that Mr. Harvey provided to us in the earlier episode. Oh, the Beatles. Gotta love them. Do you like the Beatles? You know, 6 decades later, controversy still surrounds the true origin of the Beatles' haircut. The two main contenders for who played the key role in the band members dropping the quiff hairstyle and adopting the mop top are Astrid Kirchherr and Jurgen Vollmer. A quiff hairstyle is sort of a combination of a 1950s pompadour, 1950s flat top, and sometimes even a mohawk. Take a look at these pictures of the band members before their signature hairdos. All had varying versions of the quiff. But who were Astrid and Jurgen? Both were young German photographers who befriended the band during their early days gigging in Hamburg, Germany. In 2008, Terry Gross interviewed Astrid for National Public Radio. Here's a photo of Klaus Voormann, Astrid Kirchherr, and Stuart Sutcliffe. Astrid recalled that Klaus Voormann, her boyfriend before she met Beatles bassist Stuart Sutcliffe in 1960, had big ears which stuck out. Klaus normally wore a version of the quiff. This hairstyle brought more attention to his large protruding ears. She convinced Klaus to wash the grease out of his hair, and she combed his hair over his ears. She said it looked absolutely beautiful. Stuart Sutcliffe saw Klaus's hairstyle and requested Astrid to style his hair in the same manner. According to Astrid, Stuart was the first of the band members to perform on stage in what she referred to as the Klaus haircut. Remember that this was in 1960. But Jurgen claimed that the signature haircuts came about just as Mr. Harvey explained in the rest of the story. He said, "I gave both of them their first Beatles haircut in my hotel room on the left bank." The left bank in Paris refers to the south side of the Seine River, or the left side when you're facing west. He said in another interview, "I gave them the haircut. It was their idea to have it the same as mine. They left Paris and never brushed their hair back again. That's the real story of the haircut. Don't let anyone tell you different." George Harrison confirmed that he adopted the mop top in this way. "I only brushed my hair forward after John and Paul came back from Paris." Paul McCartney explained that Jurgen had his hair mod style and asked Jurgen, "Would you do our hair like yours? We're on holiday. What the hell?" Beatles mop top wigs became popular for people who wanted to transform their hairstyles instantly, many of which eventually let their hair grow out. The Beatles haircut became fashionable and remains popular. Oasis band members Liam and Noel Gallagher sported the mop top. Some members of the pop group One Direction did as well. But probably the most current example would have to be the K-pop band, the Korean pop band BTS. All 7 members of that group wear their hairstyle made famous by the Beatles. It's hard to believe that the origin of a simple haircut could produce such controversy. You know, maybe we should just do what the Beatles said and let it be. I'm Brad Dison. Thanks for watching. And as Paul Harvey would say, good day.